The dauntless people exterminate the Maya with the sword of wisdom and become one with a being. Sarvasara, Suresha, Swajana Sukadashila, Devavedya, Purana Purusha, Rishabha, Adya, Vishwavandya, Mukunda, Chitprakasha, I have emerged from the sea of sins. Nevertheless, I am ever blissful by your blessings. As Kartaviryaarjuna was rhapsodized, Lord Dattatreya bloomed with ecstasy. He said, Rajagna, you have comprehended the Paroksha Gyan, sinuous or ulterior wisdom. But Aparokshanubhuti, that is experiencing it, is also essential. I shall bestow it to you. So Kartaviryaarjuna is saying that though you have known the wisdom or though you have known the knowledge about what to be known, to experience it is also very much essential, because unless and until we experience it, we will not know the real fruit of it, right? So let's see what Datta is saying. Look, there is a cave. Enter into it. Sit in a comfortable posture in such a way that your back, neck, and head are aligned vertically, and memorize the quintessence that I have preached you. Endure the result for few moments, then you shall attain immaculacy. So saying, Lord Dattatreya placed his divine hand on Arjuna's head and blessed him. Kartaviryaarjuna entered into the cave, sat in a comfortable posture, memorized the quintessence as preached by Dattatreya, and attained Samadhi state. After 13 months, he came to his senses. When he paid obeisance to the Guru, he asked with a glorious smile, Arjuna, do you remember the experiences of your Samadhi state? Karta replied, Deva, as soon as I began to meditate on your nature, my senses and mind were extinguished by my intellect. I was immersed in exuberance for about half a second and regained my senses due to karma. So the ultimate step, that is to experience the essence of the teachings of Lord Dattatreya, Lord suggested Kartaviryaarjuna to meditate in a cave. So, though Kartaviryaarjuna meditated for several months, he is feeling as if he has meditated for half a second. That's it. O merciful Lord, I could endure the eternal bliss only through your blessings. I have known that which has to be known, and practiced that which has to be practiced, and attained everything that has to be attained. Now I am uncaged from the passions. I want to experience the Samadhi state once again. I am unperturbed by the existence or non-existence of the kingdom. Time and space have become one. I am visualizing myself everywhere in the universe. I am in the state of eternal bliss and contentment, and every atom seems to be ebullient. So, due to the blessings of Lord Dattatreya, Kartaviryaarjuna meditated for several months, and then he could realize that he is the Parabrahma who is residing or who is abiding everywhere in the universe. That is why he's saying that wherever I am seeing myself. Whatever I am seeing myself. That is, he has quelled the duality of me, the duality of you. He has no differentiation between himself and the other being. So, he has reached the oneness due to the blessings of Lord Dattatreya, and since he followed Dattatreya arduously, he has done everything that Dattatreya had suggested to do. He did not miss even a single step, friends. He was totally surrendered to his Guru and did according to his instructions, and that is why he could reach oneness. Paramatma, if you could permit me, I wish to enter into the cave once again. Meditating your form is analogous to having the darshan of thy holy feet. Hence I am awaiting your instructions. So Kartavirya Arjuna has seen the taste of meditation, so he wants to meditate once again. Lord Dattatreya smiled pleasantly and said, Son, go ahead with refreshments today, and tomorrow you can enter into the cave once again to meditate. Karta followed the instructions of Dattatreya and attained Samadhi state for another 6 months. Later, he was in Samadhi state for 12 more months. Lord Dattatreya, who was gleeful with the endeavors of Arjuna, proclaimed, Raja, you have envisioned my true nature. Indeed, I am overjoyed. Do you remember that you asked me about Sadachara, that is, rituals enjoined by Vedas, for which I did not provide any explanation? Now, I shall delineate the same. Listen to it attentively. In fact, the enlightened souls like me and you need not follow Sadachara, as we are beyond that. But for the welfare of the society, I observe all of the rituals arduously. But sometimes, to test the devotion of a devotee, I behave strangely, like imbibing the toddy, consuming non-vegetarian food, and roaming in the graveyard. But you shall not follow those, as you have to be an exemplar for your citizens. Dattatreya is saying that in order to test his devotees, his behavior is queer, like imbibing toddy and then roaming in the graveyard and then playing with the women. All these things he performed only to test the devotion of his devotees. He is actually pristine from deep inside. But he is also warning Kartavirya Arjuna not to imitate him, because Kartavirya Arjuna is a king, and like we have a saying, right? Yada Raja Tada Praja. So as the king behaves, so the citizens of his kingdom will also behave. Actually, a king's behavior has a great impact on the citizens. So he is saying Kartavirya Arjuna not to imitate him. Son Kartavirya Arjuna, the one who has realized the self need not fear of actions. Hence, he need not follow any of the principles. He neither neglects the impious or sinful actions, nor he adopts the righteous actions. He behaves like a child. As he is self-contented, he need not perform any karma. So, an enlightened being need not fear of the actions. Action here is karma. So, since he is enlightened, he need not perform any karma, and such a person behaves like a child. So, how does a child is actually innocent, and a child is always in the present moment. A child does not have any complaints, judgments, right? So, enlightened being also behaves like a child. Even if he is involved karma, yet he is devoid of its fruits. Only a couple of people encounter unabating happiness. The one who has overcome the fears of performing karma through yoga, and the other who is equal to Brahma in all aspects. Kartaviryarjuna, now it is time for you to go back to your kingdom and take care of your kith and kin. You can visit me periodically at Sahyadri. Meditate on my essence, remember me forever, and follow my teachings in your day-to-day life. So Dattatreya is sending back Kartaviryarjuna to his kingdom because he has got so many responsibilities to fulfill. And he is also suggesting that he has to follow the teachings of Lord every day. Kartaviryarjuna was swooning with joy and circumambulated Lord Dattatreya and the seers who were present there. He returned to his Mahishmati kingdom with a heart filled with veneration towards Dattatreya. Further, he ruled his kingdom according to the directions given by Lord. 1 year passed in a trice. One fine day, Kartaviryarjuna visited Sahyadri and paid respects to Lord Dattatreya and other seers. Dattatreya inquired about his well-being and asked, "Son, you're dubious about something. What is that? Let me clarify it." Karta acknowledged thus, "Dattatreya Deva, with your beneficence, I have acquired the knowledge about everything that is required. But I have certain doubts regarding the effectuation of Satkarma, that is, meritorious deeds, and Dushkarma, non-meritorious deeds, about which I would humbly request you to expatiate. Why does a man get entrapped by agony, though he wants to enjoy the pleasures? Magha Masa, that is 11th month of Telugu calendar, is considered to be very chill. In that case, why does few people wake up in the wee hours and perform puja? Is it a vrat, religious practice? Pray clear my doubts." Significance of Magha Masa. The emperor of crores of microcosms, Lord Dattatreya, replied pleasantly, "The king of Mahishmati, indeed, you have questioned brilliantly." Brahma depicted the significance of Magha Masa to Narada. The fruits of doing Magha Snan, that is, taking bath during wee hours in Magha Masa, are uncountable, and those who perform it without anticipating the result are purified both externally and internally, thereby uniting with their self. The rest are blessed with pleasures and jubilation. So Lord is saying that to take bath in the wee hours in Magha Masa is very fruitful. However, the result of Magha Snana depends on the place, country, faith and practice. The Indian peninsula is a karma bhumi, and the one who is born here and do not carry out Magha Snana is deemed to be useless, even though he has performed Satkarma. Lord Vishnu becomes blithesome with this vrat. As the sun's radiance is incompatible, correspondingly nothing can replace Magha Snana. The body is an ad interim abode. Though we take care of our body, it does not obey our instructions and may leave us at any time. Our body is a combination of air, bile juice and phlegm, and none can gratify it. If we do not heed to the body, even for a single day, it becomes miasmic. It has many desires and it is egoistic. Once it is deprived of life force, it gets decayed. In such case, if Magha Snana is not done, imagine how futile the body becomes. A person who is not devoted towards Lord Vishnu, an individual commencing death ceremony of ancestors without inviting a yogi, a monarchy without a Brahmin, and the family that does not observe Sadachara are deemed to be odious. Observing the duties with pride, austerity with anger, knowledge with speculation, a lady without devotion towards her husband, brahmachari having an affair with a woman, offering made in a yagna when the fire is not blazed substantially, food prepared for feeding themselves, wealth of a miser, a king having many foes, visiting pilgrimages for the sake of survival, untrue utterances, chanting mantra with skepticism, doing japa with an agitated mind, words that are devoid of devotion, and commencing the death anniversary of forefathers without any devotion or ineffective. King, during the sunrise in Magha Masa, the rivers invite everyone to take bath in them as they can liquidate the sins. Correspondingly, sins are petrified with Magha Masa as they have to forsake the person who does Magha Snana. The sins committed consciously or unconsciously, through actions or through utterances. The myriads of sins or calculable sins are wiped off by doing Magha Snana like a blazing fire burning the firewood. King, the sinners become unblemished while the meritorious people reach the empyrean. Lord Dattatreya is saying how effective Magha Snana is. So the sinners would become pure, that is, their sins will be wiped off, and the meritorious people will attain liberation. So he is giving a lot of importance to Magha Snana, friends. Eschew expressing any doubt concerning the veracity of fruits obtained by Magha Snana. Magha Snana is equivalent to chanting the Maha Mantra, performing austerity. It is the atonement for every error. It fulfills all of the wishes and bestows pleasures in both physical world and heavens. Now listen to a story that depicts the efficacy of Magha Snana. So Dattatreya is even giving us an example, a story as an example to tell us how effective Magha Snana is, how fruitful Magha Snana is. In the Bhrigu dynasty, a Brahmin woman by name Ruchika was born. Unfortunately, she was widowed at an early age. Unable to withstand her dolor, she performed severe austerity. At the banks of river Reva near Vindhyachal mountains. She was an arduous devotee of Lord Vishnu and used to follow Sadachara meticulously. She was reticent, suave, and generous. She took the vows of chastity and gleaned the corns from the fields for her survival. Every day, prior to having her lunch, she served the guests and treated them with delicious food. Friends, if we can observe from the beginning, in this book they have given lot of importance to the guests, that is feeding the guests. And they say that if a guest comes to our house and if he returns unhappily, then he carries away all our merits. So they are saying that, Lord is saying that a guest is very important. If a guest come to our house in the noon, We should definitely feed that guest with delicious food. That is what Lord is saying from the beginning. She used to be vigilant throughout the night, meditating on Lord Vishnu. Ruchika bathed in Narmada and Reva rivers in Magha Masa and chanted Narayana mantra with unwavering faith. In the course of time, her body shrank due to her strenuous efforts and she passed away. The effectiveness of Maghasnana made her to incarnate at Vishnulok and abided there for 4,000 epochs. Friends, we can see that Ruchika, though her husband died at her prime age, she did not grieve. Rather, she meditated on Lord for her whole life, and she even treated guests. Though she did not have food to eat, yet she treated the guests, and she used to bathe in the Reva river every day, especially during the Magha Mas. So, friends, I think we have to learn this from Ruchika. Grievance actually multiplies grievance, but if we make our mind to meditate on Lord, we can definitely enjoy better fruits, friends. I think we would be, rather, I can say, we would be blessed tremendously by meditating on Lord instead of grieving for what we have lost. Once, Brahma intended to obliterate the demons Sanda and Upasanda. Hence, he made her to reincarnate at Satyalok as a dazzling, gorgeous, and ravishing damsel Tilottama. I think we all are aware of the celestial nymph Tilottama. She was none other than Ruchika. Ruchika was incarnated as Tilottama by Brahma to annihilate the demons Sanda and Upasanda. At the behest of Brahma, Tilottama reached the place of demons through the skyway. The demons were domiciled at a meadow called Ashokavanam on the banks of river Reva. Ergo, Tilottama landed over there along with her Veena. She placed her Veena at the trunk of an Ashoka tree and dived into river Reva. She swam enthusiastically for few hours, resulting in outspread of her resonance across the river. The demons were intrigued and bewildered by the redolence, so they followed it across the river banks to inquire its source of emanation. Tilottama finished her swim and wore a marvelous white color sari with a matching blouse and embellished her thick, long brown hair with fragrant flowers. She bejeweled herself with pearl and diamond sets. Her bangles were making tinkling sounds and her hair wafted by the evening breeze. She sat on a rock seat near the Ashoka tree and began to play Veena mellifluously. After a while, she sang to the tunes of Veena. The demons who were inspecting her sub-rosa were completely nonplussed by her charm and dulcet voice. Immediately, they informed about her to their kings Sanda and Upasanda, as we are uncertain whether she is a goddess, a human, a Nagakanya, or a Yakshangi, that is a demigoddess, but she is a gem of women. She is the most tantalizing woman on earth. Even Manmatha shall be bewitched by her looks. You have to meet her personally, as we are unable to demonstrate more about her enchanting looks. Sanda and Upasanda gathered their weapons and at once reached Ashokavanam, where Tilottama was singing and playing the Veena. The twosome was bedazzled so immensely by her pulchritude that they quarrelled among each other to procure her. In the effort, both of them died. As a weapon destroys the mountain silently, in the same manner, Tilottama obliterated the demons who were creating disturbances in human lives. Since her task of snuffing the demons was accomplished successfully, she returned to Brahmalok. Brahma was elated by her achievements and blessed that as long as the sun exists, she would abide in Suryalok, enjoying all the pleasures. Kartaviryarjuna. Ruchika was born as Tilottama due to the efficacy of Maghasnan and could consummate the divine task. Later, she was bestowed with the abidance in Suryalok too. Till now, she is relishing her moments in Suryalok. Hence, everybody should do Maghasnan to become pristine by effacing the sins and thus get liberated. So Lord is saying that since Ruchika performed Maghasnana in the river Reva, and also she meditated on Lord throughout her life. So all these merits, like all these good deeds, have resulted in lots of merits to her, that she was born as Tilottama. As a damsel, she was characterized by ravishing beauty. And though she was born as a Tilottama, though she was born as a beautiful lady, Brahma utilized her to obliterate the demons. Her beauty made the two demons to get destroyed, which has helped the human race. So the simple task that she performed of doing Maghasnan helped the entire human race. Actually, her pulchritude has protected the human race from the wicked hands of the demons like Sanda and Upasanda. That is the effectiveness of Maghasnan and also doing meditation. Story of Hemakundala. Kartaviryarjuna, now that you have known the efficacy of Maghasnana, I shall deliver a story that exemplifies the result of practicing or non-practicing the Sadachara. In a quaint place called Naishada Mahanagara, a Vaishya by name Hemakundala was dwelling along with his kith and kin. He was as affluent as Kubera, the richest deity. He worshipped fire god every day and performed puja to a priest regularly. Hemakundala's occupation was doing multifarious businesses. He was selling animals like cows, horses, buffaloes, etc., apart from exporting and importing various kinds of fruits, vegetables, provisions, dry fruits, dairy products, and gained whooping profits in every business. In turn, he stored around 8 crores of gold coins. Since Hemakundala was aging, he distributed 1/6 part of his wealth amongst the poor and dug up wells, lakes, ponds, and planted botanical gardens. Every day food was served to the needy from dawn till the dusk for free of cost. Drinking water was arranged in huge pitchers throughout the town. Later on, he consigned his wealth to his sons Sri Kundala and Vikundala and retired to the forest along with his wife. He did Namasmaran of Govinda regularly, and on auspicious day he vacated his body. Hemakundala was the wealthiest person, friends. Though he was wealthiest, he was not proud about it, and he always helped the poor. Now it was the regime of his sons. They abandoned benefaction as well as helping the poor and needy. The two brothers were egoistic and befriended undesirable company, and they were obnoxious. Though their mother and well wishers warned them, they disregarded them and spent every day and night with the musicians, dancers, itinerant actors, and other entertainers. The duo squandered money on expensive outfits, ornaments, perfumes, fragrant flowers, pearl necklaces, elephant sports, alcohol, non-vegetarian food, and wars. They had no discretion between day and night, as they were indulged in all sort of entertainments irrespective of time frame. Wars, dancers, itinerant actors, wrestlers, and musicians were highly paid. They neither expended on charity nor on shrines. The wealth had dwindled within 2 years of time. Since they were not left with a single penny, their kith and kin forsaken them. Hence the duo began to do burglary for their survival, and consequently they were abandoned from Naishada Mahanagara. So friends, Hemakundala's sons were quite opposite to him. They did not provide alms to the poor, rather they squandered money on musicians and then elephant sports and all. At the end, they even became burglars. Both the brothers had to move to the forests for their living. They hunted animals to satisfy their appetite. As days passed, they were initiated with hunting the wild animals like tigers and lions. One day, Sri Kundala was hunting a tiger. In the effort, he entered a cave and did not return. On contrary, his brother Vikundala entered a dense forest while pursuing a wild animal. Even he was arrested in the forest. The duo expired on the same day and time in the cave and forest respectively. So they had to depend on wild animals for their survival, friends. That is the fate of Vikundala and his brother. As usual, the attendants of Lord Yama incarcerated them. The elder one was sent to hell, while the younger one to heaven. Vikundala was baffled by the decision of Yama, since both of them were sinners. When he questioned about the same to the attendants of Yama, they proclaimed, "Once you entered into a dense forest while pursuing a wild animal. Do you remember that you did not meet your elder brother thereafter? While you were rambling in the forest, you came across a hermitage of Seth Sumitra, son of Harimitra. He was pious, well versed in Vedas, and a Brahmagnani. You befriended him. It was Magha Masa, and you took Maghasnana in the river Reva along with the sage. On the first day itself, your entire sins were dissolved in the river. Due to Maghasnana of second day, you procured the merit of abiding in the Empyrean. The fruits of karma have to be endued by each and every individual, and it is impossible to abolish karma without undergoing its effects." So friends, do you remember that even Madalasa suggested his son Alarka, like the first step to enter into the spiritual journey is befriending the holy people. The same thing here Vikundala has done When he entered into the forest, he met the sage called Sumitra. So he befriended Sumitra. Because Sumitra was doing Maghasnana every year, even Vikundala performed the same, due to which he was sent to Empyrean. So that is the effect of befriending the holy people, friends. And it is also called as Sajjana Sangatya in Sanskrit. Vikundala was despondent with the insuperable difficulty of his brother, but he was unable to defend him, as it was impossible to shield his brother from enduring karma. As Vikundala was waddling along with the attendants, he asked them, "Sir, it is said that if two people put 7 steps together, they become friends. Since we have travelled together for a long distance, we have known each other. Hence, on a friendly basis, I would wish to know from you the different kinds of karma that paves the way either to Gehenna or Empyreal." Explanation of Dharma by Yamadut, that is the attendant of Yama. Friend, you have asked for valuable information. Since your sins are wiped off, your mind has become undefiled. In any case, desist from hurting the fellow beings through thoughts, deeds, and utterances. If an individual resists from tormenting others, he or she shall not be condemned to hell. So the first thing that Yamadut, that is the attendant of Yama, is saying that not to hurt the fellow beings, not to hurt the other persons, even through thoughts, deeds, and utterances. That means he is saying that we have to be pure. That is, our thoughts have to be pure, our deeds have to be pure, and our utterances have to be pure. They should not hurt anybody. And it is also called as Manasa Vacha Karmana. We should not hurt anybody. People involved in slaughtering animals will be punished sternly in the Gehenna, though they are well versed in Vedas, perform austerity and yagnas. So even if a person performs austerity, or he is well versed in Vedas, or he meditates for long duration, and if he kills the animals, he has to endure the karma. This is the second point given by the Yamadut. That is, he is telling about ahimsa. Ahimsa, that is non-hurting of any being, is the primary duty. Ahimsa is the greatest austerity. Ahimsa is an exceptional benefaction, and ahimsa is the highest virtue. Ahimsa is the acme of all the duties. So, ahimsa is the primary duty of any human being, friends. Ahimsa is non-hurting the fellow beings. It could be even animals and birds too. It's not only related to the persons or the humans. It is also related to the animal kingdom, and then the water and sea animals, plant kingdom. We should not hurt the plants either. So, ahimsa paramo dharmaha. We know this, right? So, that is what Yamadut is saying. People who observe ahimsa are the true devotees of Lord Vishnu, and their beneficence will be in excess. So, a true devotee is not the one who performs puja for a number of hours, but the one who follows the path of ahimsa. He is the real devotee of Lord. The one who treats the insects, bugs, and ants as the form of soul and safeguards them never aspires the hell. On contrary, people who slaughter the sea animals and other species of animals for their survival shall be directed to hell to undergo the punishments. Later, they will take birth as immobile properties for few birds, as wild animals for a set of birds, and then as a blind, creeper, a penurious person, and as the leper in the upcoming births. So, friends, the one who is not following ahimsa, the one who is killing the animals, even the sea animals, friends, if a person is killing any of the animal for his survival or to consume it in the form of food, then they shall be born as immobile properties in their succeeding births, then as blind, as a leper, as a crippler. So these are all the births that they are going to experience. Hence, a being should not be tormented through mind, deed, and utterance. Such a pious person need not fear of hell. Ahimsa is the acme of all the duties. So we should not torment anybody even through mind, friends. We should not torment even through mind. I think we have to remember this properly. It's not only about deeds. Like I said, manasa, vacha, karmana, that is through mind, through utterances, and through actions. Through these three things, we should not hurt anybody. There are two kinds of rivers. The rivers that flow unswervingly and the rivers that take deep turns. But ultimately, both are absorbed into the sea. Similarly, all of the duties or dharmas are conjugated by ahimsa. A person who awaits tribulating the fellow beings shall procure the merit of bathing in entire rivers and performing thousands of yagnas. So, a person who does not follow the path of ahimsa shall procure the merit of bathing in the entire rivers and also performing thousands of yagnas. Following one's duties meticulously is imperative to reach the empyrean. People who pledge to follow chastity are the inhabitants of Brahmalok. The compassionate people and those who cast the cow milk or ghee into the fire, that is Agnihotra, and observe Pancha Mahayagna, that is the 5 daily worships regularly, are eligible for residing at Empyrean. The Pancha Mahayagnas are as given below. Deva Yagna, that is worship of Devas, done by offering cow milk to Devas through Agni. So here they are mentioning that people who perform Pancha Yagnas, they shall abide in Empyrean. So the Pancha Yagnas are, the first one is Deva Yagna, that is offering cow milk to Devas through Agni, that is doing Agnihotra. And then Pitra Yagna, worship of forefathers, done by offering rice or water to forefathers. Usually we do this for annual ceremonies and all, no? So then we do this, offering pinda and all. And then Manishya Yagna, worship of fellow humans, done by offering whatever one has to fellow beings. So if we offer anything to our fellow beings, then it is called as Manishya Yagna. And then Bhuta Yagna, worship of other beings, done by offering food and other needful to animals, birds, insects, etc. And then Brahma Yagna, worship of knowledge, done by offering one's knowledge to others as well as learning for self. If we are sharing our knowledge to others, then it is called as Brahma Yagna. A warrior who fights till his last breath without consternation reaches the abode of Sriman Narayana through sun's hemisphere. Vikundala, a defender of orphan women, deceased women, Brahmins, physically disabled people, and the one who leaves his breath to rescue others are likely to become the embodiments of paradise. Since rescuing a cow from a whirlpool and helping an ailing Brahmin are generous acts, people who are involved in those acts shall be directed to Ashwamedha Loka. People serving a cow with devotion and desist from mounting their oxen are blessed with an abide in Golok. One who helps in quenching the thirst of a cow by placing water in pits is likely to dwell in heaven. So, whoever is helping the other person or the other animal in one way or other is likely to stay at heaven. That is what they are describing here. The different kinds of acts that help a person to abide in heavens. But one thing to be noted, friends, we should not expect anything while we are performing such tasks. This is very important note. Arranging an oblong pond or pits of water is infinitely meritorious. As the animals and birds drink water from them, eventually the merits of donor are increased. Hence, they would dwell in the Empyrean forever. Since water is an essential life sustainer of the entire living beings, individuals involved in arranging water during summer season for human kingdom as well as the animal kingdom are considered to be the models of rectitude. So, arranging water for humans as well as animals is also beneficial, and such persons would stay in the Empyrean. Friend, planting a peepal, neem and banyan tree, 3 wood apple, gooseberry, bell fruit trees, 5 mango trees and 10 tamarind trees results in abidance at Devalok, enjoying all the pleasures of Devalok. The trees are better than an unrighteous offspring as they offer fruits and flowers to the possessor. Planting a tree is highly virtuous when compared to practicing Agnihotra and giving birth to a son, since it is equivalent to performing all kinds of yagnas and offering all kinds of donations. It is a sin to cut down a tree that has borne fruits. So friends, here it is mentioned that even planting a tree is virtuous and we should never cut a tree that has borne fruits. Efficacy of Tulasi, holy basil. Planting a tree is indeed meritorious, but planting a holy basil is an infinitely virtuous task. By growing a garden of holy basil, the fear of Yama vanishes because it is eminent in extirpating the sins and fulfilling the wishes. A house with a holy basil plant in the garden is indeed sanctified. The possessor of a holy basil plant abides in heaven for as many years as the number of leaves and seeds of that plant. Even their forefathers reach Vishnulok. Viewing Narmada river, taking bath in Ganga and touching the basil leaf are considered to be beneficial. Sins are obliterated. Viewing Narmada river, taking bath in Ganga and touching the basil leaf are considered to be beneficial. Sins are obliterated either by planting a holy basil or by touching it or by pouring water to it or by just espying it. By offering basil leaves to Lord Shiva, one shall be blessed enormously. The sanctity obtained by planting thousands of long pepper plants and gooseberry trees is attained by planting a single basil plant. Such is the efficacy of holy basil. Worshipping Lord Vishnu with the holy leaves of basil is the best way to enter into Brahmalok. A single basil leaf consists of all the rivers and deities. Benefits of treating the guests. By cherishing the gods, Brahmins, and guests every day, one shall abide in Brahmalok. A guest who comes in the noon is equivalent to Brahma, irrespective of his characteristics. By treating a Brahmin or some other person who is exhausted of traveling shall become a resident of Amarlok. By feeding the travelers and by feeding guests without hesitation, one shall dwell in Vishnulok. A guest should be treated sumptuously, and he or she should never be accused. It is our prime duty to gratify the guests. Remember, if a guest returns to his place with a heart filled with dolor, he carries away all the merits of the house owner along with him. A guest is more important than a relative. So here Lord is saying that treating guests is very much beneficial, as there's a saying that Atithi Devo Bhava, like a guest should be treated sumptuously. A person who feeds 10 people imbibes ambrosia in dazzling aeroplanes, abides at Empyrean to the merit he gathers, and takes birth in a noble family in Indian peninsula. The entire beings live by consuming food. Hence, to bestow food is to bestow life. Once upon a time, Kesari Dhwaja completed his abidance at heaven and was travelling back to the earth. Then King of Vaivasvata told him, "If you wish to return to heaven, engage yourself in Annadana, that is, offering food to the needy.